In 2013, Tomb Raider was rebooted from the fine folks over at Crystal Dynamics and published by Square Enix. And about 11 months later, we have just received the exact same game on the PS4 and the Xbox One with a slew of extra features and a visual makeover. Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, as it's being called, is really one of the few games that can showcase some of the potential for our new machines. Tomb Raider serves as a wonderful introduction and an origin story to our beloved Lara Croft with tight shooting mechanics and a fun adventure, but there's not really a lot of reason to play it if you played the original edition on Xbox 360, PS3, or PC. I'll get right to the meat and potatoes of this entire release, the graphics. The updated visuals were tailored specifically for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and they are, quite frankly, beautiful. Both consoles render at a native 1080p and take advantage of advanced visual effects. One of the most notable features is called Tress effects, which essentially renders Laura's hair. If she's climbing up a radio tower, you'll see her hair billowing in the proper direction of the wind. Likewise, there are a lot of other smaller details in the environment, from cleaner shadows to high-resolution textures. Unfortunately, the other included features in this definitive version of Tomb Raider are mostly DLC. These include weapon packs, character skins, and an extra 2-minute puzzle. It's largely cheap content that doesn't really have any significant gameplay nor add anything to the value. It's nice that they're included, but I was hoping for some brand new content. In Tomb Raider, we're introduced to a green Lara Croft who is on one of her first archaeological ventures, searching for the lost island of Yamatai in a place called the Dragon's Triangle. Unfortunately, they run into a storm and it absolutely tears their ship apart, and they're now stranded on this island inhabited by a group of men who seemingly kill for fun. The general storyline follows twists and turns, and it's kind of hard to know what's going to happen next. It lasted longer than I anticipated, and it should take somewhere between 10 and 12 hours to play through. One aspect that surprised me was the emotion and realistic movements of Lara. I can't say the same for the secondary characters, but the motion capture makes all the movements from Lara much more immersive, and it's almost even captivating to watch an innocent woman face death time and time again, only to turn into the hardened adventurer by the end. The psychological torment that she endures is one of the driving factors in what makes Tomb Raider a wonderful adventure. Whereas previous Tomb Raiders have had a heavy emphasis on solving puzzles, that's not really the case here. There are some strong similarities to Uncharted because there's tons of shooting, jumping, and climbing. If you are a fan of the older Tomb Raider games, you might be a bit disappointed in the puzzles because they've kind of taken a backseat to the shooting. However, the gunplay is very tight and controls well. Using a bow to silently pick off guards is a blast. Unfortunately, the combat is also plagued by a bunch of QuickTime events. Actually, they're not really exclusive to combat. You'll find them everywhere, including cutscenes, climbing, and more. You also have the ability to upgrade your weapons and gear with the game's currency, salvage. By picking up salvage from falling enemies in crates, you'll be able to add napalm to your arrows, silencers to your pistols, and a bunch of other neat features. This customization is a fresh way to update the Tomb Raider series and differentiate itself from other third-person franchises. If there's any one thing that drags Tomb Raider down, it's the enemy AI. Your enemies will frequently charge directly at you with no regard for their well-being, and when they do cover it, they hop out at predictable intervals so you can pick them off. Most unfortunate, however, is how oblivious they are to everything. You could pick off a guard and his buddy not 10 feet from him won't even bat an eye. These scenarios become increasingly rare throughout the game though, as most situations end in gunfire. Multiplayer returns for Tomb Raider Definitive Edition. I have never played the original release's multiplayer, but I expect that it's largely the same with a smoother frame rate. It plays very similar to the multiplayer in Uncharted, spread out across 4 game modes. These modes are really the only unique aspect of the multiplayer, including the standard free-for-all and team deathmatch, but also different variations on Capture the Flag and King of the Hill. Unfortunately, I was plagued with extreme latency and surprise kicks for many games, so it can be pretty frustrating. I largely played Tomb Raider for the single-player experience, but I'm sure the multiplayer, for all of its generalities, will pad out the game for a few more hours, and some people will be into that. For all the problems that Tomb Raider has, it's still a great reboot to an iconic franchise. Sure, the AI might be a tad on the slow side and the multiplayer is shoehorned in, but it's a wonderful adventure with a very personable protagonist. Taking a page out of Uncharted just might have been the best thing for Tomb Raider to do, even if it is a tad ironic. But here's the real dilemma. If you've played Tomb Raider last year and you finished it and you have an Xbox One or PS4, there's honestly not a lot of reason to go and pick up the re-release on the new consoles. As stated previously, it's a huge graphical update that makes the game absolutely beautiful, but that can only go so far. There's not a whole lot of new gameplay here. If you've played Tomb Raider last year, you've essentially played the Definitive Edition. However, if you haven't played Tomb Raider and you're a fan of action-adventure games such as Uncharted, I wholeheartedly recommend you pick this up. It's certainly an adventure worth embarking on at least once, and it serves as a faithful origin story. Thanks for watching our video review of Tomb Raider Definitive Edition. Head on over to JumpToGamer.com for the full written review and more gaming news.